Broadcasting live from the Sliver Hive on the plane of not in these precons. This is TapTapConcede. Welcome everybody to TapTapConcede. My name is Graham. Joining me is Kathleen.
Hello.
And Wheeler.
Thank you for having me, Graham. It's great to be here.
And today, we're going to be talking about Commander Masters, Morty, Commander Masters, and its precons that have now been fully spoiled. And in fact, at the time of this going up, it will have been the Commander Masters pre-release this past Friday. But at time of recording, that hasn't happened yet, so we don't know. we assume that it was a fun day of Commander, but we don't know how any of the games went or anything. So
you can't make me have fun with my friends. Just try it.
I know. I am powerless. Before we get into that, however, a reminder, of course, that this show is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Please check out cardkingdom.com/LRR. That lets them know that we sent you, and you can ask them very nicely for a button, and they'll give you a little button. And I think we're still on. I think we're just Dan here, or I think I'm just Dan here. But there may be another button by the time you get this. Get yourself some singles out of these precon decks. Why not? Also, everything we do is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun, and we really appreciate it. So today we're going to talk about Commander Masters, because I just literally just said this, but now we have not yet played with them. We've drafted for the purposes of the PPR, and Wheeler's put together a sealed deck for the PPR, but we haven't actually played with the set yet. So really, it's just sort of looking at the set in the vacuum of just looking at all the cards and some of the new cards that are in the Commander decks. So I don't know, Wheeler, you're in the world of Commander.
Yeah, you're on the keg.
Yeah, I guess.
What do you make of the set so far, without having actually played it yet?
Well, strictly speaking, from the cards that are getting reprinted, as well as the shifts in rarity in which they're getting reprinted, this set looks cool and good.
Yeah, so our spoiler card, we had Deadly Rollick, right? And I am not up on a bunch of stuff about Commander. I love Commander. I like playing it a lot, but the sort of the meta, or sort of the cards that are just always good. Like, I don't know every card, right?
Yeah.
And so before we went live to record, or before we started recording that video, I was like, I should look up this card, find out sort of like what kind of reprints it has, what sort of value it's looking at. And it had been printed once in the Ikoria Commander decks. So back in April 2020, and which all kind of got like lost in the haze of the early lockdown. And it was like going for like $33 on Card Kingdom. And so I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this seems like it's a pretty good reprint. Turns out, unsurprisingly, that's a whole cycle, one in each color, for basically a spell that is free if you cast, or if you have your commander. It's just it's a free spell that does stuff. And it turns out they're all good.
Yes.
And they were all reprinted in this set, finally, for the first time at Rare. And I saw a lot of comments on Deadly Rollick being like, oh, thank God this wasn't upshifted to Mythic, because a lot of people were like, oh, they're gonna shift it up to Mythic if they reprint these, because everybody wants them and they're expensive. But they didn't, so that was nice.
Yeah, free spells are pretty good.
Yeah.
They are, that cycle it's kind of at a weird time where they were like, from the Ikoria product, which was right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so maybe there was a thing of people not wanting to buy all that product because they weren't able to play with friends for, X amount of months.
Because this was like before, this was like just as everybody, at least for us in Canada anyway, this is like just after lockdown started, everyone's gone home, but the whole spell table ecosystem hasn't really picked up yet. So like Ikoria got sort of lost, not being able to play Commander on Arena.
Yeah, those cards got real pricey. I mean, they're real good. Free spells are broken, and they are fun to play no matter the level of competition. Obviously, at like a CDH level, you're going to want to play, cards like Deflecting SWAT, the red one which redirects the spell.
Is that the red one from this cycle? I haven't actually seen this whole cycle.
Yeah, that one was like $70 Canadian. That's too much.
Jeez.
And yeah, they're pretty good and they're pretty fun. They're really appealing, and they were dying of a reprint, even though it seems like they only came out just yesterday. And I think this set does a good job of addressing that, in that there are all these cards that have giant price tags attached to them just because they have a single printing, and it's real awkward to find a good spot to reprint those cards.
Are there some other, apart from this cycle? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, other than Judge Foils, I was going to say Judge Foils is like a place where that used to kind of be where they would.
Yeah,
throw
that's
those,
awkward though.
But exactly. And so, one of the other big ones is Capture of Zhengzhou, which is the Time Walk, the 5-mana Time Walk.
Yeah, that's
that
a
is
time warp, but
from Portal
from
3
Portal
Kingdoms.
So it's just a functional reprint of Time Warp.
Right.
Yeah.
And I paid $500 for my copy of this card many years ago. From Portal 3 Kingdoms. And that's too much money.
Yeah.
It's too much money then, it's too much money now. And especially because it's just a card that you play if you're looking... I didn't buy my copy for Commander, but it's the kind of card you get where you're like, I'm doing a Time Walk thing, I need every Time Walk. And it's functionally just adding on, like it's redundancy. So it's not necessary, but if you're trying to, be as thematic as possible or
Right.
stick to the theme, you do want to get it. And there's no reason it should be that much.
No.
It's just availability, and it's just awkward to find a printing for a card that references a real world place. So this set does that pretty well.
Do you know if, since this was revealed that it's being reprinted, do you know if the price has gone down considerably?
I haven't checked. I know it
take a
dropped from the Judge printing of this card.
Oh, there was that's what you were saying.
But it went from but the P3K version will hold its value no matter what.
Right.
But it went from you have to pay like $500, $400 for a copy to congratulations, you only have to pay like $150 for a copy to now hopefully something more reasonable.
So
They also reprinted Loyal Retainers, didn't they?
Yes, yeah. That's another card. That one they got, that one had been reprinted a couple of times. They kind of locked on to like, oh, well, this is awkward to print because it just has like a very weird timing restriction from Portal 3 Kingdoms of you can only sacrifice it during your turn before attackers are declared, but not at sorcery speed.
So it's for those keeping score at home, it's 2 and a white for a 1/1 human advisor. Sacrifice Loyal Retainers, return target legendary card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Yeah, activate only during your turn before attackers are declared. So you could do it in your upkeep. Mm-hmm. You could do it, like draw step. I don't know if you get priority in the draw step. You
do.
Okay. Main phase, the beginning of combat step.
You could.
And then that's it.
That's it.
What a narrow window of time.
Right. And it's so weird to print that into something where it might be somebody's first pack of Magic cards. Right?
Yeah.
They're just like, what is going on?
And you're not going to do this in a normal Commander precon.
Yeah, I mean, you probably could.
Yeah,
but again, that might be somebody's introduction to Magic. At least that's what it was. That is an avenue that players can get into the game. And it cares about Legends, so this is something where like you want to print this for Commander players. You want this to be cheap, and I think they achieve that. They just need to do it for like 12 other cards from P3K, if possible, maybe even more.
I like that from a flavor-wise perspective. The new art is on Dominaria, which is sort of legend, sort of focused. Mm-hmm. So it kind of works. While you would have these Loyal Retainers there. That's a flavor win. Good job, art directing team.
Just casting my eyes across Card Kingdom, at least, the Judge Foil reprint of Capture of Jingzhou is $100. The P3K one is this is U.S. prices, $280 for the P3K one, and then this reprint $40.
Good, great.
So, yeah. Are there any other big sort of reprint bangers in that regard in terms of value that you've noticed that I just haven't noticed because I don't know these things?
I mean, I'm not the best person to ask because this is going to be such a really horrible humble brag.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, I own all these cards,
right.
And so I don't really pay attention to the reprints because it doesn't matter to me. My cards get, I guess they lose value, but they're never leaving my meaty hands anyways. Like I don't know. I bought them to play them,
Fair enough.
not to sell them later on. Jeweled Lotus is one too, where like that's another one where it's like, oh, well, obviously Commander players are going to want to play this, and it came out in the initial Commander Legends. And where are you going to try to fit this in? Because it's not like it's not an every Commander deck card, but it's not a card that you would want for every Commander deck, but it's the kind of card that a more casual Timmy Tammy, for lack of better terms, player is going to want to throw in every deck.
Right.
So it's nice to make that more accessible, even if it is just, baby steps, because it's back in this at Mythic.
Yeah.
But just more copies.
Yeah, the Commander Legends version of this on Card Kingdom is currently at $70, but also out of stock. So the this one is the reprint is it's 60, so not a lot cheaper, but at least they're available. I mean, things will normalize a little bit, right? Like these are all pre-sale prices, which tend to inflate.
Yeah. Well, for me with the pricing, it's nice that you have these Goliath priced cards come down, but for me, I'm more interested in the cards that were sitting at like the $20 value point, or like $15 to $20 coming down to like $5. That is more manageable for your average player, especially like the land cycle. There's the Commander Legends lands, the enemy battle bond kind of cycle.
That enters tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents.
Yeah, so it's like the perfect dual land, and those are the kind of things that they should really be putting in precons, or trying to make as cheap as possible and as accessible as possible, because it's helping out. Like, you shouldn't need to have dual lands and fetches or shocks even for your commander deck, and frankly, you don't need to. But it's just nice to give players more options than like the Battle for Zendikar lands,
right?
Or like Odyssey filter lands. Like, these were already so easy to find, and they're just unnecessary to put back in, even though they're okay. But yeah, I'm happy that there are more jumps from 20 to 5 than
Yeah, no, I mean, like we were looking the other day, and Crash of Rhino Beetles, which was a preview card of ours for a Commander Precon some years ago, 3 or 4 years ago now, at Rare, is in Commander Masters at Common, which seems preposterous to have Crash of Rhino Beetles at Common.
It's really nice that the new generation gets to experience the demise of Ivy Elemental that I faced as a child, a card that was initially printed at Rare in Odyssey block that I opened as a child and went, wow, this thing's huge. It must be good. Now it's a common.
Which one's Ivy Elemental?
X and a green elemental, 0/0 enters with X counters. That's it.
That's it.
That was rare.
It's however... That was a rare?
was Odyssey block.
Yeah, but Odyssey block also had Psychotog
Yeah.
and Burning Wish.
But I mean, like, that's the thing. It was like old magic. Spells good, creatures bad.
Yeah.
New magic. Creatures good, spells reasonably priced.
Yeah.
So, speaking of pre-constructed mana bases, again, I've not had a lot of time to sort of ingest the discourse, also because I'm not really on Twitter much these days. Check out Mastodon. There's been, let's say, some feedback that the mana base specifically for the Slivers deck is not as good as they could have done for a pre-constructed deck at this price point. And also that Sliver Hive isn't there. Which seems very strange, because Eldrazi Temple is in the Eldrazi deck, although I'm going to come back to calling it an Eldrazi deck in a moment. But because you've actually poked through this deck a bit, what did you make of the mana base in the Sliver, the 5-color deck?
It was fine. It was serviceable.
Yeah.
It could have been better.
What's it missing?
Sliver Hive.
Okay, obviously.
Sliver Hive's a big one.
Is that just like, yeah, this is just to remind everyone, this was this originally from M15?
Yes.
Okay, so it's taps to add a colorless, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, spend it only to cast a sliver, and then 5 and tap, you make a 1/1 sliver. You can only activate it if you control a sliver.
So let me ask a very quick question.
Yeah.
Where do you put this card if not here?
Yeah, right?
Like, do you wait until another core set limited environment has slivers? Like, that is an option.
Yeah.
But also, why not both? Like,
Is there a reason not to reprint it? Like, it's not even, it's, okay, it's currently on Card Kingdom at $50.
What?
Yep.
Okay, well, that makes up for my capture going down. Well, the reason not to print it, I mean, the reason is always just money, right? Like, the reason that to not introduce this into a deck is because they want to use the hype that is associated with this card and the appeal of it being reprinted at a later date. So they can add value to future products by not introducing this into a product that is already going to appeal.
But like you say, if you're not going to put the Sliver Hive in the Sliver deck with your first new legendary 5-color sliver in however many years, like, if not now, then when? Ow, sorry, I hit my hand on something.
It's okay, we're all upset.
Yeah, I'm so mad about it. I'm more baffled, really.
Well, they're not stupid, right? Like, they know that if they're building a sliver deck, one of the first things that I would do is I would look at everything that mentions slivers.
Yeah.
And then kind of go like, should this be here? And if it's a 5-color pre-con deck, and 5-color, again, mana bases, not the best. This one was actually fine, serviceable. And you look at this card and go like, this is the perfect card for this deck. Why is it not there? It's not like they just missed it, right? There's an intent. There's going to be an intent behind excluding this card from this deck. And that's, possibly because they want to use it to put value towards future products or releases. And whether or not that means, that there's going to be another, remastered draft environment, or this finds itself in like a core set or in another set where slivers are back. Who knows, right? Like, you don't whiff on this. You just know that like you would rather use this for something down the line. Yeah. I mean, why not both is my thought.
Yeah.
But
I guess, in case anyone's wondering, this is not Wheeler defending that position.
God, no. I think everything should be as cheap as hell, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is someone with a collection too.
Yeah, I don't care. Again, I recognize that I say this from a position of privilege where I purchased these cards, except for the capture, a lot of these cards at a lower dollar amount. And I was fortunate enough to do that. But I don't care if my cards get reprinted into oblivion because I bought them as game pieces, not as
An investment.
Yeah, that's silly.
All right. I want to shift gears a little bit. We're still talking about Commander Masters. That's this whole episode, but I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the new cards. And I'm going to stay in the Sliver deck for now because we talked about the new cards from the Eldrazi deck in that deck reveal. Although, actually, I want to get your thought on Darksteel Monolith because this card seems messed up.
Oh, that's the one where you can play a colorless thing for free?
Yeah. It's an 8-mana indestructible plank that just sits there. And then once per turn, any turn, not your turns, you can play a colorless card from your hand for free.
And it's an artifact.
Yes.
Right? Seems good.
Yeah, very big. That's the kind of card that in my head I prefer. Like, obviously, if it's Darksteel and you want it to be indestructible, you kind of price yourself into making it an artifact. That's the thing where, like, because it's an artifact, it makes it so easy to cheat out
Right.
very early, like turn 3. No big deal.
What are you using to cheat that out?
Trash for treasure, Argivian restoration, refurbish, goblin welder effects. Like there are basically any number of these cards that are on like the EDH rec top percentage in artifact decks.
Right.
There are so many. And then it just lets you pop off. Not to say there aren't already cards like that, like Portal 2 Phyrexia from Brothers War is another one of those cards. It's just like I get making it work for the thematics of this card. You want it to be indestructible and therefore an artifact and all that. And also given where this card comes out after we've just seen Mirrodin obliterated into Phyrexia, right? And it's nice to have something like this, I guess. But it's the kind of card that just reinforces play patterns that I'm not a fan of in Commander, but that's just me. I might be I like just real trash can magic for a Commander. It's too fast for my old bones.
So actually, I suppose this is similar to a previous topic, but before sort of moving on, because I said that we would that I would talk about this, because at time of recording, the Eldrazi Unbound deck reveal that we released has come out a little over an hour ago. So the early feedback from our YouTube comments, so that's a very specific segment of the Magic community, is that it looks like it's probably the best of the precons, but that none of the ones from this cycle are like necessarily worth their dollar amount. And it's called Eldrazi Unbound, and it's not really an Eldrazi deck. There's some very cool Eldrazi cards in it, but there are 10 creature type Eldrazi's. It's not an Eldrazi
Typal deck.
It's just big colorless. And apparently there was an article earlier this week from Wizards that was like, oh, this is more like a big colorless deck. And people are like, well, why did you call it Eldrazi Unbound with an Eldrazi commander? And I don't think that's necessarily an unreasonable piece of feedback.
Yeah, that's a lot of mythic wild cards you're going to need to use to get all the Eldrazi people want to play. The named Eldrazi.
Yeah.
Again, it's just like I understand. When I say I understand, I mean that I look at it through the lens of my previous work history as to why a company would say, no, let's not put Kozilek, both Ulamogs, and all these friends in this sealed product. But yeah, it makes sense because there are ones that you could put that aren't the mythics, but it's not like, hey everybody, check it out, it's Warden of Geometries. Everybody clap for Warden of Geometries, the 4 mana 2/3 that taps at a colorless or whatever. Yeah.
What about what's the Thought Not Seer? That one or
no Thought Not Seer?
No.
In your Eldrazi deck?
Yeah.
No Reality Smasher?
That's the other one I was thinking of. Thank you. No.
Huh. I know Matter Reshaper's in there.
Yeah.
It That Betrays is in there.
Yes.
I think Pathraiser of Ulamog and Artisan of Kozilek are in there.
Pathraiser's in the main set. It's not in this deck.
I mean, okay.
Yeah.
I get you.
It's an interesting mix. The sub commander that Ben did a deck tech for, Omarthus, is a Spirit Naga.
Yeah, that's weird. This card kicks ass. It is so cool and so good.
Yeah.
And I get why it's not an Eldrazi if it's manifesting.
Yeah.
But I also understand why you would look at this and be like, oh, so it's not an Eldrazi, huh?
Omarthus Ghostfire Initiate, by the way, is XX for a 0/0. Enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. And whenever you put one or more +1/+1 counters on another colorless creature, you may also put a +1/+1 counter on Omarthus. And then when Omarthus dies, you manifest a number of cards from the top of your library equal to the number of counters on it.
So cool.
It's very, very cool. So, yeah, I also just in terms of I think this is very cool. A new card from the Sliver deck that I wanted to talk about was Lazotep Sliver. This card's messed up. It's 3 and a black for a 4/4, which is already great. Those are green stats. 4/4 for 4.
Yeah, in black.
Yeah, I know,
Where's
right?
the world coming to?
Yeah, it's a zombie Sliver. Sliver creatures you control have Afflict 2, so that the Afflict from Hour of Devastation.
What does that do again?
It's whenever this creature becomes blocked, the defending player loses 2 life.
Oh, that's very good for slivers.
Also, whenever a non-token Sliver you control dies, amass Slivers 2. And so there is a Sliver army token now with its 0/0 army, but they are all Lazotept Slivers, which is a horrifying prospect.
Oh.
Why did the
I think they said that this set's not exactly like canon.
yeah.
So like Amonkhet has not been faced with having its whole like society crumble and then getting invaded by the Phyrexians and then somehow getting Lazotep Slivers on it. It's like, no, we didn't do that.
This really seems like all the precons are sort of like the wild imaginings of Commodore Guff of like, but what if?
Yeah.
Because which I really wish they'd leaned into more, because like there's some questions. There's a Chandra. There's a new Chandra in the Commodore Guff deck, which is a Super Friends deck. Of like Chandra, it's a Lost Legacy.
It's Legacy of Fire.
Yeah, Legacy of Fire. And it's like Chandra with a bunch of like sort of fire ghosts behind her. And there's like Jaya. Okay, sure. But also like Nissa and Ajani, who are not dead. And like Gideon's dead. Gideon could have been there. What is this selection of characters?
People that were important to her?
I guess?
Yeah, people who have shaped her heart,
Okay.
maybe.
I suppose. I guess the inclusion of Jaya just makes me think that it's like, oh, they're like
In
force.
memoriam.
They're like force
It's
ghosts.
just the 3 important people in her life: her mom, her cat, her girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Although, RIP to her actual mom, who's not in there.
Yeah, that's true. But Pia's not dead, right?
No, that's true. That's why,
Well-
hey, conspiracy theory.
Uh-huh.
Jaya's secretly not dead. No, I'm not. That's not true. That's not a thing.
She did die in a very comical way. She is dead.
She is depicted as dying on a card, so I'm pretty
That's
sure
true.
she's dead.
She got depicted getting pushed off a cliff.
I guess in the flavor text, something like her last words were like, "Oh, ow, my bones."
Oh.
No, it's like something like, as Jaya fell to her death, she thought like if she had to die defending Dominaria would be a good way to go. Essentially, is something like along the lines.
Fire. She's Phoenix Rebirth. She's not dead. I'd put money on it.
Okay, well that.
Speaking of flavor text, well, I know that we don't want to make a huge deal about it. We have mentioned Kathleen worked on the creative text team for this set. Yay! Did you have any particular? So it's mostly reprints.
Yeah.
So
there wasn't a lot. There wasn't like a ton of flavor text due for the set because obviously the old art keeps the old flavor text, right? And
generally, sometimes they change.
Sometimes they update it, but like sometimes you leave a classic alone.
And
right?
so they had. I assume that they wanted new flavor text for. I'm just guessing. We literally haven't talked about this.
No, because I wasn't allowed to tell you.
Yeah. For the borderless art variants.
Yes.
And there's 40 new cards across the actual Commander precons.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you're especially proud of, or
Well, I'm just
or
really.
just think is neat?
I was super jazzed to write the flavor text for Judith because she's one of my favorite characters and she's on the full art Deadly Rollick. I spent a lot of time trying to get myself into the Judith headspace and to be like, okay, what do we know about Judith? She's a performer. Like she's the head of the Rakdos. She's kind of like a sadist, but she's also a savvy business person. Where
thing.
There's like the Rakdos' performances are supposed to be like amazing, but also terrifying. How do I put this out there? And she's like the biggest star there. How do I like translate. So for somebody who's never seen Judith before and doesn't know who this person is and doesn't know what her deal is, why does she look like this? How do I translate what I know about the setting into sort of an evocative piece of flavor text? So it's something along the lines of like...
this is, just for James' benefit, this is on Deadly Rollick.
Yeah.
I don't know how easy the borderless... There we go.
Yeah, anyone can make their audience beg for an encore because she has an audience. She's a performer. She's on a stage, which you kind of get from the art. I prefer mine to beg for mercy, which gets it's pithy, it's short, it fits on the card. That's always like a big concern for me. It can't be too long, despite my love of adjectives.
Also, Judith's whipping arm is ripped.
Yeah, well, it's a heavy workout.
Yeah.
And she's she looks like a performing dominatrix.
Yep.
I think that's the kind of thing a very extra performing dominatrix would say in like a media interview or something. So anyhow, I like doing stuff like that. It's like, okay, I need to come up with some flavor text for a well-known character. I'll be reading for 40 minutes.
Was there any other cards that you were...
There's some cards
recall?
There's some cards I was surprised to see get accepted.
Like what?
The flavor text for Disrupt Decorum.
Oh, yes.
Because you put it in and sometimes things get changed, right? And
Yeah.
that's what editors do. Like that's their job. They see things that you don't.
Sometimes you also put in things that are like, look, I've entered some real suggestions, but this one's just for me.
Yeah, so this is the original Disrupt Decorum, which is they had the explainer text for Goad.
Right.
And on the new one,
Dinner and politics don't mix.
It's a food fight.
It's a food fight.
And on the new one, the art, with the full art, is very cartoony. Like it's very bright, it's very colorful. It's set at Strixhaven, right? And it's
is it a food fight in?
It's a food fight in the Strixhaven cafeteria, right? Like those are.
Oh, wow.
You've got a Silver Quill student, you've got a Quandrix, Prismari, Witherbloom, and is sort of down under the text box, and they drop the flavor text they drop the explainer text. So I was like, okay, look how much room I have. Also, like, because this is very busy art that doesn't necessarily, like, once you know what you're looking at, it's easy to see. Mm-hmm. But, I felt like it needed a little bit of, like, if I can make the flavor text tell the story in this art.
Right.
So it starts out with Strixhaven Star. Because
is this the student newspaper?
That is the canonical student newspaper in Strixhaven.
Really?
I looked it up and put out a call on Twitter.
I didn't know it existed. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's in the Strixhaven role playing guide from Dungeons and Dragons. So I looked it up. It's the Strixhaven Star. I would not have called it that, but there we are.
Well, you would have called it the Picayune.
Yes, I would have. Strixhaven Star food critic Aspen Van Noot's coverage of the fight would go on to win a student journalism award for outstanding war reporting, which is exactly the kind of sentence you would have in a student newspaper. And I think student journalism is, you have to have the word student in there.
Yeah. Because
if you don't know what Strixhaven is,
yeah,
right? And outstanding war reporting is just funnier than war reporting.
Mm-hmm. I assume that if anyone doesn't know that you did the flavor text on this, they would read the name Aspen Van Noot and immediately know.
In my headcanon, Aspen Van Noot is a Loxodon.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a good reporter.
I love that also this particular art, again by Ron Spencer, puts me in mind of like a goofy version of that one printing of, is it Terror? With like the skin and the muscles and the skeleton in a cycle. In a cycle.
Yeah.
Because this is like every person's getting absolutely clapped by the person behind them. It's just like this circular food fight.
Yeah, the 10th edition Terror. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Which is amazing art by Adam Rex. Like it's a phenomenal piece of thing. But this is the food fight version of it.
Yeah. Anyhow, I thought it was a fun card, and I would submit some fun flavor text, and then you submit it, and then it's like, no way, that's so exciting. I'm so happy. I don't honestly. I wrote this quite a while ago. I don't remember most of what I did, to be honest with you. I mean, I wasn't the only person on the team So, not all, and I'm really loath to take even partial credit for something I may not have written. But big ups to my teammates and of course to Fox, the editor, who has the very difficult and thankless job of getting all of that stuff sorted out. So yeah. Anyhow, that's some how I write things, which I don't think is like mind blowing to anybody who's ever thought about anything before. But
I think it's super interesting to talk about.
Anybody who's ever thought about anything.
You ever tried thinking about stuff?
God, my mind goes to dark places almost immediately, so I try not to.
I'm glad you were able to channel that towards Magic the Gathering flavor text.
Yeah.
Did you get to work on any names for the new cards for the precons?
Yes, but I don't remember anything about them.
Yeah, because this was like 10 plus months ago. Like, this was ages ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is quite a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was like, yeah.
Were you working on this before Brothers War?
This is like right before you got cancer, and then you got cancer, and my brain kind of melts, sort of like I don't remember anything about this. I don't know if I worked on this before Brothers War.
Huh.
Yeah, no idea.
Fair enough. Okay. Wheeler, are there any other of the new cards that have been leaping out at you, or have you managed to even look at them?
I like everything in the Enchantress enchantment deck, the Onyxia deck.
That deck seems very fun.
It seems very good. Kudos to the design team for making an Enchantress deck or an enchantment deck, but with enough Enchantresses, because that's all. It's disgusting what Enchantress players wants, because they only want one thing, which is to draw more cards. And so they just have like 4 of them in that deck, I think, which is nice. I like the Regal Sliver. It's from the Sliver deck as well. I can't remember any of the enchantment cards by name.
I'm trying to find them currently.
That's the problem, because they're new.
Yeah.
That's the best thing about me working on a commander set, because like I already like only look at what the cards do for the purposes of naming them. So it's like I had no idea any of this stuff was coming or was significant. It's like, oh, well, what does that do? It's like the no Garfield sign. What does the sign
here we
mean?
go. All right, so So Regal Sliver is Regal. What could it be? 3 and a white for 3/3, and slivers you control have. When the sliver enters the battlefield, slivers you control get +1/+1 until end of turn if you're the monarch. Otherwise, you become the monarch.
That's fun.
Yeah, I think the Monarch and I'm going to get a lot of people booing at me, but the Initiative are really good in Commander.
Yeah, they keep the game moving.
Yeah, they get people to take game actions. That's important. Commander players don't take enough game actions, which sounds really wild. And I also really like the flavor text or the interpretation of the flavor text on the version of this card that isn't full art, which will be up on the screen, right?
Yeah, it's like not all slivers are born.
It is possible that some queens are not born queens, but evolve into that form over time. So Regal Sliver says both trans rights and slays, and I think that's pretty beautiful.
From Rucaramel.
Oh, Rucaramel is a really exciting. Okay, so Rucaramel had been previously mentioned in flavor text on for the Riptide project from the original Slivers. I looked up Rucaramel to figure out what was going on.
Did you do this flavor text?
No. The old flavor text.
Yeah, no. But did you do this flavor text?
No.
Okay.
But Rucaramel has finally got a card now.
Oh.
They've been pictured. We didn't know who Rucaramel was before. Her name had just appeared in flavor text attributions.
I did not know that.
Synchronized Sliver, I think.
Yeah.
I had to go into my mind palace for that one. The 5 mana blue 3/3 slivers have vigilance from planar chaos, I think. That's like the big one that's jumping out to me.
Yeah.
So she's been around for a hot minute.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what we're saying, broadly speaking, in regards to these precons, is get yourself some singles.
Yeah.
Of the new cards.
I wish everything was cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
because this is the kind of set that is cool. The idea of doing a single draft of this set is very appealing to me. And I don't know if that's possible for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
However, buying singles is cool and good, and a lot easier to do because these sets drive down prices.
Cardkingdom.com/LRR would be a place you could buy some singles. Sorry, we got to wrap up anyway, so segue to the end. Yeah, no, let them know that we sent you. They're great folks. They have improbably fast shipping, and you can get yourself these full decks there as well if you so desire. But you know, I don't know. General consensus seems to be or singles. Up to you. Also, everything we do here is brought to you by you and your kind support of our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. If you haven't already seen it, the VOD for the PPR should be up on this very channel very, very soon. So check that out, and we'll be talking to you again soon. Yeah. Until next time, I've been Graham, joined by Kathleen.
Thank you.
Wheeler.
For having me. It was great to be here.
James was on tech. Heather gets these online. Thank you all so much for watching and listening, and we will talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.